Hey everybody, it's me again. Welcome back to Allison Unfiltered. So last week was pretty heavy, right? I'm sorry if I made a bunch of you cry, but I know you probably felt some of that too. If you've ever had daddy issues like me and mom issues. But I wanted to do something a little different today. And sometimes I don't know what I'm going to talk about until the day of, and I ask God to, put it on my heart. What would be good to talk about? And I was talking to my husband Danny about this, and I said, "Well, what do you think I should talk about today?" And he goes, "Me." And I was like, "Okay, that's actually a pretty good idea. I can talk about you." So that's what I want to talk about, because this man does not get enough props for the things that he does. And it was an interesting conversation too, because I said, I don't want to sound pretentious, but I'm seriously one of the luckiest women in the whole world, right? Because I don't know many women in my life that have a husband that loves them like Danny loves me. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's a little smothering, and he knows that, and we've talked about that, so that's no surprise to him. But I think to myself sometimes when I'm being distant or whatever, I think to myself, I was like, God, what would it be like if he didn't want to kiss me every time he saw me? What would it be like if he didn't want to touch me or hug me or something anytime he saw me? Danny's number one love language is physical touch. And that's like number 3 or 4 on my list, because I'm such a busybody, right? I don't slow down enough. And so I think about other women who would probably kill to have their husbands want to touch them and want to kiss them. So it's like it's on the opposite end of the spectrum. And I was like, you know what? I was like, if I sit here and talk about this, there are women out there that are going to absolutely hate me, because and I'm just going to say it because it triggers jealousy. It does. I mean, I've already had to deal with that in my life. And I don't think people realize how far we've come and how hard we've worked for our marriage. There are things about my husband that are absolutely incredible, and he takes such good care of me. And then I think about the friends of mine who don't, who has a husband that takes care of them, but the expectation of them is to wait on them hand and foot like it's the 1920s, right? And I think that's one of the things that made such a difference for Danny and I. Is I was already an independent single mom when we got together, right? And I told him, and I'm sure I've said this in podcasts before, maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't, but I told him, I said, look, if you want to wear the pants in this family, this is not the place for you. But if you're willing to be my partner and walk side by side with me and share a pant leg, we can each have a pant leg, then I'm down for that. I'm totally down. That's how I want a marriage. And this is what we've taught our kids, and this is what we talk to our kids about. Some people have some really old school ways of doing things, and I get that, but it takes 2 people in the home now, with everything happening these days. So, when my husband first met our family, we had met on December 17th for the first time in person. We had been talking for about 2 weeks. We met on Match. We met in person on the 17th on the border. And on the 25th, which is like less than 2 weeks later, he met my whole family. Like, he came for Christmas and met the whole family. okay, at my grandmother's house. And he literally pissed off all the men because when it was time to get up and go watch the football game after Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, he went in the kitchen and started helping all the women wash the dishes. And I kept getting these looks from my grandmother, and she was like, who is this boy, right? Like, who is this? Where did you find this guy? And I remember my Aunt Sherry is like, good job, Allison. Like, look at him go. Like, he's willing to do the dishes. And it just tickled me, and it still tickles him to this day that you know, he got bad looks from the guys in the family because he made him look bad. But that's just who my husband is, right? He's a helper, he's a fixer, he's a doer, right? He's a rule follower, so he should have been a police officer, 100%, hands down. Like, he wants everybody to follow the rules. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. It's bad when he doesn't use a blinker. And he says I don't use a blinker, but we won't get into that. So, you know, Christmas happened. We've stayed together all these years, and it's not like we haven't had ups and downs. You know, we had a really rough go our first year of marriage, and I think we were a little too overconfident, the both of us, and we got humbled real fast. Like, God just said, smack down, y'all are done. You better figure this out, right? Or, you know, I don't know. Whatever he put us through was the best thing we ever went through. A year into our marriage, our pastor, whom we were going through marriage counseling with, told us that usually he sees what we were going through about the 7th year of marriage. He said there's always a struggle. That first year's real hard, 4 years, and then 7 years. I just had a total brain fart. That's the best thing. Anyway, so we went through our struggles. But let me tell you something. I have never in my life, I don't know if I've ever had a good example set for me for what love looks like. My mom was in abusive relationships, physically, emotionally. I watched that from a very young age. And I don't know if I ever really saw what love was supposed to be. And the relationships that I went through were not good, right? I was the fixer. I was I took the drug addict in. Well, I mean, I didn't really know they were drug addicts. I was just blinded by, I don't know what. But Danny was the first man that came into my life that I didn't have to fix. He had a car. And listen, this is saying a lot for me, right? So he had a car. He had a job. He had his own money. He paid his own bills. He had his own place to live. And that was huge to me. I mean, was it fancy stuff? No, but it was his own that he worked for. And he just had this confidence about him that was so attractive to me. I mean, yeah, he's a good-looking guy, of course, but you can have good looks and not have confidence in it, and it's really a huge turnoff. But he had some serious confidence, and I keep looking over because I have a picture of him sitting on my desk. And so I keep looking at it because it's such a great picture of him. But this man loves me like no matter what, unconditional. I mean, it's little things. He takes care of me. I wish I could pinpoint all the little things, but it's, he works a full-time job. He travels a lot now. He helps with our Xyngular business. he's my partner. 110,000%. He's my partner. He also he handles the editing and all the clips and all the things of this podcast. And he doesn't take a lot of time for himself. He listens to some stupid Glenn Beck stuff and political stuff, and he watches his races. He's a big Formula One fan. But those are really about the only things he does for himself. Every once in a while, he'll go get on the motorcycle and take a ride for about an hour. But for the most part, everything he does is for this family. I mean, he cooks, he cleans, he washes dishes. Now, he does not like me washing dishes because I'm still, like, ever since I had my cataract surgery, my distance vision is corrected, but my up close vision still sucks. I need reading glasses. Like, I need reading glasses to see my damn food. And we cracked up about that the other night because, like, the fact that you sit down and your plate of food is blurry, do you know how disappointing that is? You just wait till you get older and you see the same. It's terrible. But he doesn't like me. I totally scrolled. He doesn't like me washing the dishes because I miss spots, and he doesn't like that. He wants them really clean. So I dry most of the time. He doesn't like getting stuck drying. So he's always the first one over to start washing dishes so he doesn't get stuck drying. I know your game, Danny. But he's a great cook. He's an incredible husband. He's a great father. Like, he can fix anything. He can change the oil on a car. He can dig up sprinkler heads and replace them. It's like, I don't know, he can do electrical stuff sometimes when he doesn't get electrocuted. But, I don't know how he knows how to do all the things that he does. Like, he's my personal, he hates when I say this, but he's my personal pool boy. And he just takes care of me. He takes care of us. He takes care of our home. He doesn't bitch about buying groceries. He doesn't complain about paying the bills. And, that's another huge thing is I've always been in control of all the bills because I've been screwed a few times. I remember a long time ago, bought a truck for Gage's dad, and he didn't pay the payments for like 6 months, and I had no idea until it hit my credit. And the bank called. But Danny would never do anything like that. When we first got together, his credit was doo-doo because he had been through a divorce. And I know most of you know how that goes if you've been through a divorce and credit. But he's rocking out like an 850 now. Like he likes to come show me his credit score because we rival credit scores. The highest mine has been is like 891. And I think the highest has been is like 850 something. So, that's fun to rival that. And, he's a good man. And I know I totally squirreled because there was something else I was talking about. But, he had all these things. He could take care of himself. He didn't have to fix me. I didn't have to fix him. We talked about when we first got together, like, here's all my cards. Here's all the cards I'm going to lay on the table. And you can take it or leave it because I don't want any bullshit. I don't want any games. I'm too old for that. My kids are involved and I'm not going to drag them through the muck, right? And we agreed on that for sure. I mean, if you have a man like that, then you should consider yourself extremely blessed. And if you don't, this is where it might hurt. So if you're sensitive, you might turn this off. If you don't have a man like that, then maybe you should think about raising your expectations of how you should be treated as a woman and a wife. And that's the honest to God truth, because I had no, what is the word I'm looking for? Why do I lose my words in the middle of this? I had no self-esteem. I had no, like, I just figured I get what I get, right? Whatever I get, I deserve it. And that's not the case, ladies. Like, you need to set the expectation high of what you will and will not accept in a relationship. And when you do that, you end up with someone who is your partner. I mean, I get it. He is the head of our household 100%. And I divert things to him all the time. Oh, I remember where I was going. He okay, sorry, squirrel. So he totally pays all the bills, right? He does all of it. I have always been in control over that stuff because I can't trust anybody. This is the first time in my life that I have been able to trust someone. And I mean, yes, I know who our bills are paid to, and yes, I know about what we spend, but he handles that. The bills are paid. I don't have to question it. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry that the car insurance is paid and the phone bill and the water bill and, the internet bill and all of that. I don't have to worry about that stuff because he does what he's supposed to do. So once again, ladies, if you don't have someone like that, you should reevaluate what your expectations are of a relationship and the expectations of yourself. Like, you deserve that. All of us women deserve that. And to you men out there that are listening, if you're having the expectation of your partner, working full time and then coming home and taking care of all the household duties as well, like, you need to reevaluate yourself and why you expect that. Because this is not the 1920s, and it does take both of us. Now listen, there are things in this house that I can do that Danny can't do, and there's things that Danny can't do or that I can't do outside that Danny does, 100%. I don't want to say there's man's work and there's woman's work, but when there's a sprinkler head to be fixed, I mean, 100% of the time, that's going to be Danny fixing it, right? Unless we have to call somebody. But y'all, he always kisses me goodnight. He hugs me. It was funny the other day. He wanted to hug me, and I looked at him and I was like, you are going to have to back off, and you're going to have to wait about 5 minutes for that hug. And he's like, why? And I was like, because right now you are in between me and my food in the microwave. And he cracked up. He's like, are you serious? I'm like, yes, I'm totally serious. Like, I'm hangry. Like, just don't touch me. And that's the thing too, is he totally tolerates my moods. And bless it, they swing from one end to the other. And I know they do. And he takes it like a champ most of the time. But, if I'm being an asshole, he'll call me out, tell me I'm being an asshole. Like, and vice versa. But there is no one on this planet aside from God himself that loves me like this man does. And I am so grateful and so thankful to you, Danny, for everything that you do for us and our family and this life we lead. We both still look around this house and listen, it's not like this is not like $1 million house, right? This isn't even a $500,000 house, but it's more than we ever expected to be able to accomplish together. And it's nicer than anything we've ever lived in as adults, as kids. And so we look around this house and we think, God, is this really real? Like, is this really ours? Like, it's hard to believe, and pretty soon the kids will be gone and it'll just be me and him. Well, and Trump, our little kitty that adopted us. But it'll just be us. And I know it's been hard for my kids, right? Because Danny's not their dad. And I definitely, through our marriage, I've definitely had the easier side of being a stepmom, because his kids are, I mean, they're not me. They are not like my kids. And let me rephrase that, because his kids are my kids 100%. They've been with me since they were little bitty. But they just have different personalities. They don't talk back. They don't argue. They don't give you grief. They just didn't. They were easy. And mine are mouthy and loud and talk back and argue, and they want to know why. And Danny most definitely had the harder job. You know, I don't know how to say it. I guess I'll just say their names. Jacob and Colin, you know, their mom is around. Their mom is here. Their mom is really involved in their lives. So there was never a jealousy thing of like, you're not my mom, you know. It was never like that. But with my boys, they wanted their, with Brighton and Gage, my biological boys, they wanted their dads, and Danny was not that. And that caused a lot of heartache. But you know, the interesting thing is, the older they are now, who do they come to when they need advice, or when they need help, or when they have something happening? They come to Danny. Do you know why? Because he knows how to do things, and because he's been there this whole time. And it is being a stepfather to boys that don't have their fathers active in their life, or don't have positive role models for fathers active in their life. Danny hands down got the shit into that deal, and it is the most thankless job on the planet. Now, I'm not saying he handled everything properly. I'm not saying I handled everything. Listen, we're parents, we're learning, and as we're growing as human beings, and so we've all made mistakes. But one thing that I can say is he has always been a constant here, and he's always been there if they need something, and that's for any of the kids. So, I mean, Danny, kudos to you for being a hard-ass worker. You know, in your job, you give it 110% all the time. And in our marriage, I would say you give it 150%. And you said, you know, if you have, what did you say earlier when we were talking about this? If you have a woman in your life that doesn't, and you know what? Let me say this. This works both ways, guys. So guys and girls, if you have a significant other who's treating you crappy, then you need to reevaluate that situation. Are they treating you crappy because you're treating them crappy? You know, because marriage isn't about, well, if he's going to be ugly to me, I'm going to be ugly to him. That's human nature, right? That's how we want to be. But that's not what marriage is about. And, you know, there was an incident that happened a couple of weeks ago, and I was angry. You know, Danny kind of lost his temper in a situation, and I was angry at him, and I kind of, I didn't talk to him for like 3 or 4 days. Like, I mean, I said what I had to say, but that's about it. There was no sweetness. And I was walking, and I'd just been praying about this and just trying to figure out the right way to approach it. And I realized that I owed him an apology. And that's hard, right? For those of us that are super stubborn, like me, that's hard. And we had started a conversation, and he just said to me, I feel like your love for me is conditional sometimes, depending on, you know, what's happening or my behavior or whatever. And then we got interrupted by a kid having that conversation, so we didn't continue it for a couple of days. And I just told him, I said, I owe you an apology. And he just kind of looked at me because that doesn't happen a whole lot. And I said, instead of telling you how I really felt about the situation, because I didn't want to add fuel to the fire, I just shut down and I stuffed it all in. And these are the things that we promised each other when we got married. Actually, after we split up and got back together and renewed our wedding vows, we vowed to each other that communication was key. We would never stuff anything down and hold back, because that's where resentment builds, right? And so I told him, I said, I'm the one that stuffed it down, and I shut down from you instead of talking to you about this. So I owe you an apology for that. And I'm going to talk to you about it now. And here's how I feel. And here's what I think that should happen, because I'm bossy. So, but it was received better that way. And I told him, I said, I never, ever in a million years, like I was walking and I thought, you said to me, I feel like your love is conditional. And I was like, I put myself in his shoes and I was like, how would I feel if he did that to me? Like, as much as he hugs me and kisses me and loves on me and gets in my space. And he knows I don't mean that ugly. He knows exactly what that means. I would be devastated if he were that way to me. So why would I ever treat him that way? And I told him, I said, I don't ever want you to feel like you're unloved. I don't want you to ever feel like my love is conditional, because it's not conditional. This was my fault. I shut down, right? Anyway, it was good. It was a good learning lesson for us. And when we talked through that stuff, and then once we talked through it, everything's good, right? Everything's back to normal, and until the next thing that happens, because we're humans and we're gonna screw up on a regular basis. There is no perfect marriage. Ours is pretty close, but one thing I do love the most about my husband, let me tell you, I am, God, how do I put this? I am so grateful that he is not a jealous man. I'm so grateful that I am not a jealous woman. I've been through a lot. He's been through a lot. And even from situations that we've come from where jealousy could rear its ugly head, we're just not that way, and there's no secrets between us. And I can walk up and talk to someone that I've maybe dated in the past and introduce him to my husband, and my husband's going to shake his hand and say, hey man, it's nice to meet you. How are you doing? And there's not a lot of men that would do that. Like, oh, you slept with him, so you can't, I'm not going to talk to him. Blah, oh my God, dudes, get over yourself. And Danny and I talked about that one time, and he's like, if I am ignorant enough, because it's not even ignorance, because ignorance isn't knowing better. Stupidity is. So if he said, if I'm stupid enough to think that before me, you did not have other relationships and sexual relationships with other people, like, he's like, I'm just fooling myself. Like, why am I going to get mad for you talking to somebody? He's like, I know where you are every night. I know where you sleep every night. I don't concern myself with that. And that's the one thing that we don't ever question, is we don't question that we're the right people for each other. I mean, thank God for Match.com, seriously, because for what it was, 16 years ago, because I wouldn't have this had it not been for us finding each other online, for actually him finding me. But there's no jealousy, and he knows that they're relationships. So dudes, if you're out there, like, listen, get over yourself. Okay. If you know where your wife is coming every night, and you run in, and she's coming home to you every night, you know where she sleeps every night, and you run into somebody at a football game or whatever that she's been in a relationship for, pull your head out of your ass and be a grown up and shake their hand and just say, hello, how are you doing? Nice to meet you. Because you know what? Your wife is a human being, And vice versa. Your husband is a human being too. And we all had relationships before each other. So get over yourselves. Quit being jealous. It's not attractive. It's really actually one of the biggest turnoffs on the planet. If Danny were to get like huffy and puffy and jealous because I talked to someone that I was in a previous relationship with, or I said hello to someone, or even gave him a hug. Like, he's like, I'm not worried about it. I know. He's like, I know what I got. And I was like, Daddy, you don't have to worry about that either, because I know what you got too. We have something magical. So my point being, just be grown-ups in a relationship. Be grown-ups about stuff. Have some emotional intelligence. And if you don't have any emotional intelligence, read a book on it. Get some emotional intelligence, because that's going to be one of the best things you can do for your marriage. Danny and I did the Hero's Journey, and it was a year-long thing with Darren Hardy, and it was probably one of the best things we ever did for our business, our marriage, our kids, our team, like the whole 9 yards, and even our friendship. And that's the other thing too is, Danny's my best friend. He is hands down the person that I want to talk to, I want to spend time with, I want to do things with. Hands down. Babe, you're amazing. I cannot thank you enough for loving me the way you do. I don't know what I did to deserve someone like you that loves me like you do, but oh my God, I'm so grateful. So thank you to God for this family and this life and these blessings that we have. One of the things that I've been working on since being baptized last week, which was an incredible experience with my girl Holly. We just kind of did some worship and some praise together beforehand, and it was really emotional, and I just have felt this sense of peace and calm come over me. And I'm asking God every day to use me how he needs me, use me for his will. And it's just been, I don't know, it's been emotional. It's just been emotional. I can't explain it other than what's going on inside. And in my walk, I want to do better. I want to be better. I want to, pray for our marriage and pray for our family. And I want to focus on the good things and the blessings that we do have, because it's so easy for us to focus on all the bad things. Just like I did last week, right? When Danny said, you said it was highs and lows. He's like, there was only like 2 highs out of all of those lows. And, he was out of town that week, and it was just a busy week. And so we really didn't get to talk about some of that stuff. And he was in a different time zone. And so that makes everything just more rushed. And so I didn't talk to him about it. And he watched it firsthand through the podcast. And he asked me yesterday after he went through it, and he was just like, are you okay? Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay. He's like, well, as my husband, it's my job to make sure you're okay, And I said, yeah, I'm okay. But that meant the world that you asked that. So I think that's it. In marriage, we have to look out for each other. We have to love each other. We have to trust each other. Trust is huge. If you're in a relationship and you don't trust that person, you don't believe they say where they're going, or you don't believe they're doing what they're doing, then just blow that popsicle stand, because there's no reason to be in that. I don't care if you're married or not. Just go, because there is no reason. Let me tell you, I have lived in those relationships, and that is that's not a life, and it's not a way to live. And I understand that we make a vow that till death do us part. But I can't imagine that God would want us in an abusive relationship or a horrible relationship that's emotionally or physically abusive, verbally abusive. It's not okay. And I'm not saying run out and get a divorce, but I'm just saying if you can't change your husband, then change your husband. You know what I'm saying? My point is, everybody deserves good things. Like, you deserve good things. We all deserve good things. And I'm so grateful to God for these things and our children and our marriage. And I know I'm rambling at this point, but I'm going to shut this down. But thank you for listening to my rambling. And if you see my husband, you know, give him a shout out, give him a high five. Like, he's a great guy and he's doing a great job. And he doesn't get near enough credit as what he should, you know. So thank you, Danny, for everything you do for me and for our kids and for our life. I am so glad that I get to live this life with you, and I couldn't imagine life any other way. I love you so much, and I can't wait to grow old with you. Peace out, homies. Bye.